Start off by listening to a minute of Dabu 7, and this is a couple years old, but it has to do with a Brunswick plant that is being hit by the hurricane right now in the Carolinas. So if anything happens to that plant, trust me, they're not going to tell you anything if they don't have to.
Another incident at a nuclear plant, they're really not talking about it or telling the people much of anything. The last event that took place at Indian Point, it's the same old song and dance. The mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it, or if they do, they give out the initial statement that everything's okay. And as we've seen at Indian Point, the governor came out here recently and stated there was an issue. There was a radiation leak. There was a release. And this was happening to the people right after your mainstream media told you over your TV that it was okay. That was the most deadly part and dangerous part about it. It's at that critical moment when they're telling you everything's fine, trying to keep everybody calmed down, everything's fine, that it's actually happening. And people are buying it. People, you better wake up. This situation, they're not talking about any kind of release thus far, but anytime you have an explosion and a fire inside of a nuclear plant and them losing power and they don't know what's going on, it's something to keep an eye on.
So that was just them lying like they always do. So whatever happens, you just really can't believe anything the nuclear industry, or for that matter, the government tells us for safety anymore. Looking at Google Earth, and you can see the Brunswick nuclear power plant is here. And this is the storm surge flooding map. So the super intelligent brains at NOAA are telling me they're forecasting 3 feet on the beach. They're saying the water is going to come up 3 feet, which is totally ridiculous. Potential storm surge. That says it's going to be 3 feet of water, which is ridiculous. It's going to be like 20 feet of a storm surge. This is a giant storm. So here's our vaulted nuclear power plant. So they just draw in water from this canal, the Fear Canal. This is the Fear River, or over here, and then just pump it out here. So you can see, look at the tremendous amount of water that it takes to keep this thing cool. Just a lot of water. And I was looking at this, and I was talking about no cooling towers on plants anymore. It looks like they had planned to build one here, and then they said, no, we can make it cheaper if we don't have that extra cooling. We'll just use more water from here. So, saving money. So this is a propaganda film from Portland General Electric about the closing of the Trojan nuclear power plant near Portland, Oregon. So they're going to move a big piece of metal, the reactor, to Hanford, and they're really proud about moving a big piece of metal.
The reactor up to Hanford from the Trojan site. It was just amazing. I couldn't believe that it would command that much attention, but...
Just regular miracle workers moved a big piece of metal. And then the real problem is all the fuel rods, right? All the used fuel rods, fuel bundles. So look what their plan is, to put them in these cement fuel casks. So they take this out of the water bucket, they put it in the cement cask, and they put it in a parking lot next to the building. That's their solution. And then at the end they say they're not going to take them anywhere else because there's no plan.
The last step to a radiation-free site was removing the used fuel, a relatively high-level radiation source. Faced with this challenge, PGE studies showed that dry cask storage was the safest, most economical interim solution. The transfer began inside Trojan's fuel building, where the fuel was stored under 23 feet of demineralized borated water. Using an air pad system, 34 concrete casks holding the used fuel were moved from the fuel building crane bay along the transfer path to an independent spent fuel storage installation, or ISFSI. This allows safe storage of the fuel, and once a federal repository is in place, the fuel can be readily shipped. The ISFSI components are designed so the fuel assemblies are handled only once throughout the entire process.
Look at that. They even caught a solar eclipse right there. See the ring? So wow, that was really good of them.
The casks are monitored within the security boundary or protected area of the Trojan Isthmusy. A transfer station was also built on the Isthmusy pad. It will be used when the spent fuel can be transferred to a permanent, off-site, government-owned repository.
It will be used. In other words, it's not going to be used. Hasn't been used. So then they blew up the cooling tower, and I was just thinking about this, and all the newer plants don't have cooling towers. So that reduces their cooling ability, but I bet it's cheaper. And I bet that's why they don't have cooling towers anymore, because it's cheaper.
On a clear spring morning, just after 7 a.m., it all came down. It took more than 3,000 well-placed charges, but the structure collapsed exactly as planners had hoped.
This was so quick. You saw the flash, it tipped, and it went down in a cloud of smoke. And then you kind of waited for this.
September 10th, and I'm looking at Hurricane Florence off the east coast of the United States. And there's a definite eye there now, and I heard it's a Hurricane 5, Category 5, but when I look on Earth Null School, it only shows 68 miles per hour at some levels, so. There's 90, anyway, so I'm going to watch the hurricane move forward a few days. So each day will go 11th, 12th, 13th, and then the next day, 14th, it barely moves, barely moved. And then it doesn't want to predict any further. But wow, that's over 24 hours right there, hammering these coastal areas. So any houses out on those low-level spots are horrible. And then the Slurry nuclear power plant is back here somewhere. Here's Norfolk, so the Surrey 1-2 is there. And then the Brunswick 1-2, I thought that was the one that might get hit, but it looks like the storm is going to veer north. And I was just looking at this, and I looked at this one, and it says it's under construction. Under construction? Since January 1973. So I guess they finished the party that New Year's, and they started. Because they've been digging a hole in the ground for 45 years, and we've been throwing money into it, but don't want to give anybody any free education or medical or a good paying job. So here's the Brunswick one. It's the boiling water reactor type, just like Fukushima. So I'm sure they have emergency generators there to help them out, and they have some water to cool stuff, so, you know, they'll be fine. Here's the Brunswick one. It's about 2-3 miles north of town, so that's less than that away from the water, the bay, and then here's the ocean with some low-lying wheat fields in between. So that's not, it's just another typical horrible spot. And then here's the Surrey under construction. So I'm not sure if those are boiling water reactors. Anyway, just looking at threats on September 10th. September 12th, 2018, I'm looking at Hurricane Florence move in towards Wilmington, North Carolina. And then there's the Brunswick nuclear power station here that has 2 reactors. So the storm's coming in, and I'll move it forward one day, and there it's right on the coast. That's where the Wilmington is, about right there. And then it's going to hang out there for a day or so. And the Brunswick nuclear power station, you can see from this map, only has some farmland in front of it from the bay and the ocean. So if that comes in at 20 feet of tide surge, you won't want to live there anymore. September 13th, and Florence is starting to impact the Carolina coast. And I've made this map the same size as the nuclear map so you can see where things are. So here's the Brunswick power plant, which is right here. So that is not getting hit as hard as it could, but it's going to get hit pretty hard if this keeps going west. And we'll know by the time I show everybody these films, but okay. September 15th, I'm taking a last look at Florence. It sort of weakened and died away as it hit. Lots of rain hit, but the nuclear power plants, as far as I can know, are still okay at this time. So it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but it's funny how that storm died away real quick before it got to land, so that was good. Going to listen to Guy McPherson for 2 minutes.
Earth is now experiencing the human-induced 6th mass extinction. As a result of this ongoing extinction event, we have been warned of biological annihilation in the near term, a situation guaranteed to take out most, if not all, living organisms, including and especially quickly our favorite species, Homo sapiens. Humans are a relatively new species on Earth, and we require a rich and varied habitat to survive. Specifically, we need stable ecosystems and a delicately balanced and stable temperature in the vicinity of 13.5 degrees Celsius. Humans are therefore far more sensitive to ecosystem collapse than, say, crocodiles, dragonflies, bacteria, or other such organisms that have survived previous mass extinctions resulting from abrupt planetary warming. You might ask if this phenomenon can be reversed, and also how did this happen? No to the former, and allow me to explain. Civilization, and more recently industrial civilization, has knocked the Earth's delicately balanced ecosystems and stable temperatures off their centers. These centers allowed prior species of humans to evolve into Homo sapiens over the last few million years. Homo sapiens is only 300,000 years old. As a result of industrialization, several dozen self-reinforcing feedback loops that have no way of being stopped are causing global warming at a rate that is unprecedented in human history. Only an asteroid impact comes close to the rapid warming triggered by industrial civilization. The planet has warmed 1¾ degrees Celsius since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, about 1750, when the baseline temperature of 13.5 degrees Celsius was established. The primary cause of planetary warming to date is the more than 40 greenhouse gases that are clogging the atmosphere, acidifying the oceans, and trapping the heat that comes from solar radiation.
So Guy is, he doesn't even worry about chemtrails, and he doesn't worry about nuclear radiation. So he is strictly worries about the climate and how things are changing, and why he thinks that our crops will fail in a year or two. So the question is, what's going to wipe out humanity? Starvation, radiation, nuclear weapons? Take your pick.